Hello, my name is Max. Today I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm here to read the Daily Reflections book for October 24th. It's called By Faith and by Works. On anvils of experience, the structure of our society was hammered out. Thus has it been with AA. By faith and by works, we have been able to build upon the lessons of an incredible experience. They live today in the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, which, God willing, shall sustain us in unity for so long as He may need us. That's in the 12 by 12 book found on page 131, which is the last page about the first tradition, which is our common welfare must come first, I think. Let's check that out right away immediately. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. That's the first tradition. So it's a very short reading today. God has allowed me the right to be wrong in order for our fellowship to exist as it does today. If I place God's will first in my life, it is very likely that AA as I know it will remain as it is. Period. The end of the reading. So that, I've got nothing basically. But that's not going to stop me from finding something to pick at here. I went and read that page, 131. Let's read this again. By faith and by works. Because, many times when I veer wildly off the subject, I forget to look at the title of the reading. Today it's called By Faith and by Works. On anvils of experience, the structure of our society was hammered out. Thus has it been with AA. By faith and by works, we have been able to build upon the lessons of an incredible experience. They live today in the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, which, God willing, shall sustain us in unity for so long as He may need us. That's from the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book found on page 131. God has allowed me the right to be wrong in order for our fellowship to exist as it does today. If I place God's will first in my life, it is very likely that AA, as I know it today, will remain as it is. So I went to this book and I looked at page 131. And at the ending of a paragraph here, it says, on anvils of experience, the structure of our society was hammered out. Countless times in as many cities and hamlets, we reenacted the story of Eddie Rickenbacker and his courageous company when their plane crashed in the Pacific. I'll get into that maybe in a minute. Like us, they had suddenly found themselves saved from death, but still floating upon a perilous sea. How well they saw that their common welfare came first. None might become selfish of water or bread. Each needed to consider the others, and in abiding faith they knew they must find their real strength. And this they did find, in measure, to transcend all the defects of their frail craft, every test of uncertainty, pain, fear, and despair, and even the death of one of them. I added the them. Thus has it been with AA. By faith and by works, we have been able to build upon the lessons of an incredible experience. They live today in the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, which, God willing, shall sustain us in unity for so long as He may need us. So Eddie Rickenbacker, I'm not exactly sure on all this, but it really doesn't matter. A group of people in a plane crashed into the ocean, and they survived the impact, the crash, but it's like, hey, this isn't over yet. We're going to drown or be eaten by sharks or die of dehydration or starvation soon. So we need to come together And just because you have this addiction to ho-hos doesn't mean you get to eat all the bread that we have or whatever. We need to share. We all must stay together to... I was going to say, never mind. We all need to stay together to fend off the sharks, say. And even though one of us was already eaten by one, that doesn't mean that they're going to eat the rest of us if we stay together, because we can physically defend ourselves better as a group. Anyways, the point there is not to lose the fellowship, the group. There is strength in numbers. So maybe enough on that. What I liked here was on page 130. Listen to this. Those who look closely soon have the key to this strange paradox. What paradox? To many minds, all this liberty for the individual spells sheer anarchy. Every newcomer, every friend who looks at AA for the first time is greatly puzzled. They see liberty verging on license, yet they recognize at once that AA has an irresistible strength of purpose and action. How, they ask, can such a crowd of anarchists function at all? How can they possibly place their common welfare first? What in heaven's name holds them together? Those who look closely soon have the key to the strange paradox. The AA member has to conform to the principles of recovery. His life actually depends upon obedience to spiritual principles. If he deviates too far, the penalty is sure and swift. He sickens and dies. At first he goes along because he must. This is kind of more of the part that I like most. At first he goes along because he must, but later he discovers a way of life he really wants to live. Moreover, he finds he cannot keep this priceless gift unless he gives it away. It's like the sharing with other thing. The food, the Twinkies, or whatever I mentioned. Neither he nor anybody else can survive unless he carries the AA message. The moment this 12-step work forms a group, another discovery is made, that most individuals cannot recover unless there is a group. Realization dawns that he is but a small part of a great whole, that no personal sacrifice is too great for preservation of the fellowship. He learns that the clamor of desires and ambitions within him must be silenced whenever these could damage the group. It becomes plain that the group must survive or the individual will not. So, like on anvils of experience, the structure of our society was hammered out countless times. We kept reenacting this thing where Eddie Rickenbacker and his group of people in the plane crash wreckage figured out, after losing one of them, that we need to stick together if we're going to survive this. We survived the plane crash by some miracle. Think of that like alcoholism, that somehow before you killed yourself by actively drinking one more beer or whatever it is, you survived that, and now you're like in detox or in prison or somewhere, or an insane asylum. To survive the rest of that, what does the book tell us? His life actually depends upon obedience to spiritual principles. At first he goes along because he must, but later discovers a way of life he really wants to live. This is really close to my experience, and very close to many other people's experience of this thing. You take this nosedive of addiction into the ground, or something worse than the ground, and it's like by all reason, it's like that is just a miracle that person survived that kind of abuse. And then what did they do? Well, they started to abide by spiritual principles, apparently. And I'm not going to get all preachy on that here. But I realized a couple things after a lot on anvils of experience here. For me, I couldn't control my intake of alcohol. It was always way too much. It didn't matter what kind of frame of mind I was in. No matter how desperate I was to control it or whatever. The first thing to go was, well, I got to get the drug, which was alcohol, and then I'll think about it as soon as I start using it. Okay, well, I can only have this one beer sip. This is quite fictitious because it would be like 4 or 5, or whatever. But it's like, number one, I don't have the drug. I must obtain the drug, and then I get the drug, and then I have the drug, and it's like, well, I'm gonna have some of it now, and then I'll have some later. And it didn't, later never happened in that sense because I would use it all right away, all of it. Just go right through it. And I mean, you might wonder how one guy that weighs like 140 pounds at the time can drink like 25, 30, 36, 8, or 30, nearly 40 beers, 42. I think I was going to bring up another funny story, and the guy's name is Drummer, and he mentions it was never until that 42 beer point that, something. And anyway, so, how can a human drink 40 plus beers? Not a 40 ounce, 40 times 12 ounce beers of like strong beer. 6.5% alcohol by volume sometimes, 8%, whatever. That's a very well liquored up person that weighs 140 pounds and they've got that much beer sloshing around inside them. What am I talking about? Now and later. So it's like, first get the drug, and then I'll think about how much I might use at this city after I start using it, because I need that drug right now. And then start using the drug and be like, okay, I'm just going to have a couple free, say at the most, today. And then that'll be it, and then that's not a problem, and then I can do all this stuff or whatever. And then I'd be on beer free, and it's like, let's have 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 47 or whatever. And so, it was clear to me. I tried this desperate experiment over and over that I had no control, yet I persisted in doing the same thing without changing any variables until I had that plane crash thing happen, and I survived it, and now I'm like in the drunk tank or in prison or in treatment, and this thing here about because I'm still trying to talk about the spiritual thing here without getting too preachy. The AA member has to conform to the principles of recovery. His life actually depends upon obedience to spiritual principles. If he deviates too far, the penalty is sure and swift. He sickens and dies. And so I had been in that position more times than I wanted to be. And, the more gooder part, at first he goes along because he must, but later he discovers a way of life he really wants to live. And that happened to me, and I said that's very common in Alcoholics Anonymous, at least where I've been. And it isn't everywhere. It's not even a large expanse of people that have been, anyways, on anvils of experience. That was my experience. It's like, at first it's like, I would pray there would never be a plane crash or a horrible ending, abrupt, short, ugly, painful ending to my drinking, which it was all of that and more. But then it happened, and it's like, well, now what? And this happened, anyways. Now what? And I found that I had to abide by these spiritual principles that I had no idea what you're talking about. But I wanted to live. And I was willing to conform to these things and whatever it said. I didn't want to do it, but I knew if I didn't do it, I would die. So I did like step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now we're at step 10. Continued a personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Part of the being able to admit, if I didn't finish that point, and you've been watching this video, you know that I'm not going to probably go back to it, and then I'll feel bad about it maybe later, tomorrow or something, and whatever, and it'll be a new day, and we'll just work on the next thing, and it's all basically the same stuff. Let me finish this one thought, because by the time we get to step 10, we've done so much different stuff in our brains and working on new things and having a better understanding of a lot of things. You could just say this is part of the spiritual things that we didn't know anything about, and now through just going to meetings and not drinking alone, that stuff just seeps in because your mind is clearer and you're talking with humans that are tangible and they're right there and you can hear them, or unless they're deaf, like whatever. It's an experiential thing. And I've said this before, it's like, some of these stories, man, in this book, are going to hit you personally. It's like, wow, that's me. And then so that's one very key thing. Another thing is like, wow, that's incredible. That's this Eddie Rickenbacker and his crew that were in some plane crash that crashed into the ocean, I think in World War II, and they survived that impact, but now they're in the ocean, and there's a whole new different game of survival going on against nature and the enemy, because now they're fully vulnerable. They're just bobbing heads out, and so they figured out that we need to get together and work as a team. And just because one guy has an addiction to ho-hos doesn't mean he gets to eat all the ho-hos. We all need a ho-ho. So if you don't want to wither and die, you follow along because you must, because you don't want to wither and die. And soon enough, you do find out that I actually want to live this way now. This is a far better, superior, more comfortable, and surprisingly easier way of living than the way I used to go through living. Like, I know for myself that a practicing addict and alcoholic, the first thing I think is to lose the honesty and just deny everything, and then it's all hidden, you hope. And then if it's ever discovered something, you lie again about it, and then you cover it up and you hope it stays hidden. And that just goes round and round, and pretty soon your entire life is just a whole web of lies, all resting upon another lie that you can't keep straight anymore. And it's horrible. And people are perceptive, man. You gotta give other people credit. It's like people that say vodka doesn't smell, I think, or whatever. There's a Seinfeld episode about, I don't know if it's gin or vodka or whatever it is, but it's like Hennigan's, the stuff that doesn't stink or whatever. It can be our little secret that you've been drinking before the job interview or whatever. It's funny as heck. So watch that Seinfeld. And then, like my sponsor was telling me one time, he worked at this place for about 38 years. One of my sponsors, I should say. He's dead now, so I don't feel so bad about mentioning this. I'm not giving his name, and even if I gave you his name, it wouldn't be the right one. Or is it? What did I call myself today? Am I Max today, I think? Recovering alcoholic? Anyway. he said that at his like retirement going away party at the workplace, they threw him a party, gave him some cake. They had champagne or something or whatever it was. And he said that his boss said, "Hey, what's your name? By the way, you can smell vodka." Because like every day he'd go out for lunch and have a couple drinks and then come back to work and thought, because it was Hennigan's, the booze with no stench or whatever the Seinfeld thing. No, people, and likewise, when your life is just a web of lies and you think you kind of have it figured out, that people don't actually know what you're doing or what, all that, I said you need to give people more credit than that, because we can be very perceptive. And then if you think about children, that they don't have a clue of what's going on, they're even clearer on what is actually happening because they don't have a lot of preconceived ideas in the way, and they just see like either joy or suffering. And if it's not one of those two things, it doesn't, I mean, it's like that isn't joyful, daddy's in trouble. And it's just so horrible to do that to anybody you love, you know, like your wife, your daughters, your sons, your parents, you know. Anyways, I was kind of getting a bit off the thing here. We've got 20 minutes. I'm going to have to go away here now, so thank you for coming by here today. I'll get back with you later, and we'll sort all this out. Goodbye. Thank you.